Thank you for inviting me to this beautiful school. I've never been here to UDK, but there's a certain sort of aura about UDK. I think that everybody talks about this place as being a very hotspot, artistic hotspot. So I'm so happy to be here. And I think I think the greatest fan in the world of Nieto Soviano. So I don't want to make a long speech about that because you all know their work. But I think there is some kind of relationship between the southern architecture, the Spanish and Portuguese architecture, to the Scandinavian architecture, and I guess that's it's kind of trying somehow to get to the point, you could say. This is my office. I'm not going to talk so much about that, but the way we work in the office is very much because I think it's important to, when we talk to students, to emphasize that working with the models, with the physical models, and of course working in 3D is very important, but also it's very important to work with physical models. And so what we do here is we test everything that we do, either in volume models or in section models, but everything's kind of going through. Also when we do the project drawings, detailed drawings, we go through it in a physical model, and that's because you have a possibility, of course, of testing directly, but also that you're able to work a team together. Everybody can see what's going on, and everybody has a chance to get into the discussion. If you're only working in computers, it's kind of very abstract, and you don't have a possibility of getting in. You're always standing behind the guy that's operating the computer. So that's I think that's an important point. This is Copenhagen, where my office is, and where we started up and did some of our projects. Now we work quite a lot in Sweden, which is right across the sea. This is kind of, it looks rough. It's not that rough. It's almost like a lake, you could say. But then we have Sweden on the other coast, which is the west coast. And the first project I'm going to show is a small project. It's on the beach of Rå, which is a small fishing village just outside Helsingborg. And it's been a long time on its way. We did the first sketches in 2004, I think, and then in Sweden you have a very democratic process, and it takes a long time, especially when you have a setting like this, the beach being public, of course, and it's somehow difficult, of course, to take that public space away. So we were asked to do this as an extension to an existing school. And it's a preschool, and they work together, of course, with the older teachers and older children in the existing schools. And the idea here is to give something back to the public when you take away this piece of public beach space. So we work very much with the fishing village, which is structured in a way so you always have protection from the wind. It's very windy. The western wind is prevailing, and then merge it somehow with the idea of the landscape, or the dune landscape that you have on the beach. And this is how it looks like. The existing school in the back and the preschool in the front, and it's connected with a small hallway in between, and it's clad in wood, in bobina wood, which is has the same kind of qualities as hardwood, as eastern hardwood, but it's grown in Europe, and it doesn't have to be treated, so it's kind of grey, and it merges somehow into the landscape. This is going to be taken away what we had to do was to lift up the whole building 3.5 meters to take care of the flooding risk, and then we worked with the landscape to merge it within. So this is how it looks like from the beach. The initial idea was that the whole roof was going to be public, so we could give everything back to the public, but in the end the client didn't dare to do that because they were afraid of risks, of course, what if people fell off the roof and so forth, which is a little bit of a pity, but this is how it ended up. As you can see, this is more like the topology of the fishing huts, and the rest is landscape. The idea is that you have 4 groups of children, and they have these as group rooms, and everything in between is common space. And what happens is that you, by making this connection to the existing school, you have these protected spaces in between the school and the beach. And as you can see by the skies, it's really windy and it's kind of cold most of the time. And the cladding is, of course, on the roof. It's not. I had this email today. How did we actually keep the roof tight from water? But of course, there's a roof underneath, and it's just a cladding. And if you get up on the roof, as you were intended to, you of course have this beautiful view towards Denmark on the other side. And on the inside, the huts are defined by these shelves, you could say. So you have transparency, and at the same time you have this very practical thing that you could store things away, and you have the possibility of also making small exhibitions, but you have full transparency through the school. And of course they have a beautiful view. I don't think the kids care at all, actually, but maybe the grown-ups do. And this roof light, so it's more like a workshop space almost. It's so dark. I think in Scandinavia it's probably also dark here in the winter time, but in Scandinavia it's kind of extra dark. And I think that getting the daylight in is very important also for your well-being. And of course, trying to make use of all the spaces that you have on top of the wardrobes here. You have a small space, all these small spaces that the children can hide. And this is mainly because we're so envious about the sun setting in Sweden. We don't have that. So I think the photographer was quite preoccupied with that. The next project is also, it's quite an old project, it's also a kindergarten. It's set inside Copenhagen. It's one of our first projects. And it was given to us because the municipality had a detailed plan for the area, that they wanted to build a 5-story building in this it's kind of a Copenhagen block, which is pretty tight, and to fill up that hole would be quite natural. So they wanted to make a kindergarten in 5 stories, but the neighbors complained, and because the sun coming into this back space, which is very important in Copenhagen, this is the outdoor recreational space, would be taken away. So the municipality decided that we could not build in 5 stories, but only in 1 story, to be able to get the sun into the backyard. So the program was kind of too big for the space, because also you need to have outdoor area that equivals the indoor area, and as you can see, the program actually takes up the full site. So also the site was polluted. Budgets are of course very low on kindergartens and these kind of public buildings, so we didn't want to put all the money into cleaning up the site. And then we had fire regulations towards the adjacent sites, so we could only build 5 meters from this end, and then we could not have windows towards the courtyard behind it. So mainly this was about studying also the sun and the shadows towards the courtyard here, and lifting up the site in a way so we could not put all the money into the pollution and seal off that, and then of course it's about getting the sun into the backyard and getting as much outdoor area as possible, but in a direct connection with the kindergarten. So what we did was we made this kind of green space and cut out for the sun to come into the courtyard, and cutting out here and here to get daylight into the deep building, and then connecting the ground floor to the first floor with this ramp, which is kind of like a landscape, so you have a natural connection between the roof and the courtyard. And this is the original drawings, quite primitive. It's from 2003, so you can be overbearing. And this is how it looks like. So we actually got some extra space underneath the ramp here that is used for storage, but also for very cold days you can go out here and play instead of staying inside. And of course trying to make the fence as transparent as possible, because again the daylight into the courtyard behind was important. This is how it ended up. So this ramp is a 30-degree ramp, and of course the small children that are only 1 year old needed to be protected from falling down or hurting themselves. So what we did was to replace these beanbags permanently on the slope, and we could place umbrellas. So sometimes it's also sunny in Denmark to protect from the sun. So we had this kind of slope with soft beanbags and umbrellas, so you could sit or you could play or you could use it for different activities. This is the entrance on a winter's day, I think. And as you can see, the back here is 5-6 stories high, so it's kind of not really fitting in volume-wise with the area around it. And all the bays or the group rooms are in connection with an outdoor space, so you have the possibility of always getting out. I think that's important. And the beanbags, of course, you could kind of let yourself fall into, which is, I think, a fun thing to do. And the playground. And of course, protecting a little bit from the view, because it's right on the street, and the sidewalk is right beside you. The next project I'm going to show is an extension and also a restoration. I'm not going to talk so much about the restoration because there's not that much to see, and it's mainly of interest for people being interested in restoring modern buildings. This is Arne Jacobsen's Munkegårdsskole, which is in Denmark an icon of modern architecture, and a beautiful piece where Arne Jacobsen was designing all the furniture and the fittings and the lamps and so forth. And it's one of my favorite buildings. So getting into working with changing that was kind of a challenge, I think, because somehow you thought, this piece should not be changed at all. Actually, you should just restore it. But the municipality in this area wanted to facilitate new ways of learning, which is much more about group work, project work, working different classes together, working across borders of age and so forth. And the structure of Arne Jacobsen from '56 is very much about learning directly from the teacher in the classroom. So that was very difficult to reuse without having either an extension or a change of the existing structure. And initially the municipality asked some other architects to try to change this, and since there's a quite strict circulation system here, you have all these hallways and you can only walk to one side, you cannot walk to the other side through the courtyards. Then you have a double classroom here, or one classroom here, you can only reach from one hallway, and all the classes you can enter into a twin small courtyard. And it's all about, of course, the scale of the children, and it's very much about being at home in the school. And I think that Arne Jacobsen did a beautiful work in scaling down the building to make this kind of feel like home. But changing that and making it into smaller spaces and bigger spaces was very difficult. The other architects tried to make this kind of diagonal movement through the school, covering some of the courtyards and so forth. And what happened was that the municipality, the cultural heritage department vetoed the project, and we were asked to kind of start all over with municipality and the teachers to try to facilitate this. It's a famous section where you have the daylight coming all the way to the back of the classroom, and of course entering into this small courtyard directly from the classroom. It's really nice. What we did was to try to work to reprogram some of the school, and then in the end we decided that this is the big common school schoolyard, and we decided that the asphalt is kind of the limit of the listing, and when you get underground you can do something different, and you can actually be more liberated and work with different shapes and so forth. So the idea was to make a new building that's a supplement to the existing, and then keep the existing building and restore it almost as it is. We did a few changes concerning the circulation system, but it's not actually visible. But so by looking at the asphalt as being this kind of horizontal limit for the listing, we could work with the Arne Jacobsen detailing on top of the ground, and then when you get underneath, you can twist the geometry to make a different spatial system underneath. So you have like these fluent spaces with the twisted geometry. If you see the plan here, so we twist them down to form these spaces instead of keeping the more rigid system that you have above ground. And then we could connect all the hallways coming down into the basement, and also connect the sports hall here and another sports hall over here. So we got this connection in the school system. This is also a famous theme of Arne Jacobsen. You have this very compressed hallway, and then you have a release every time you meet the courtyard. The roof is kind of rising, and it's very beautiful. It's also very dark, so the idea was that when you come down into this basement, you should feel like moving up into the sky. So it should be very bright and lots of daylight down here. So this is study. Of course, this kind of detailing with the rim here is very important, that you don't feel compressed or oppressed by the ground above, with this 1.5 meter here of ground. Again, we did a lot of studies to ensure that we had enough daylight. This is a model that we took into the daylight laboratory at the academy, and we can measure the daylight very precisely. It's kind of analog, but it's still very precise. And of course, the surfaces of the building reflecting in the daylight was very important. So we decided to make everything white there. And here's the building site. It's a very expensive way of doing this, so it's not a solution if you don't have a listed building. Then we made a few changes in the existing school. Mainly we brought things back. Unfortunately, all the furniture that he did, chairs and tables and so forth, in 4 different sizes, were all gone. Sold off, I think, on eBay. But we had a few left. And then there was the color scheme that's very bright, and that we reused. And then we put the library into the old aula that was not in use, and ensure that this is reversible. You can take away this piece of furniture and you still have the old Arne Jacobsen space. And so this is basically the piece of furniture. This is the chairs that he designed, and we found a few of them around. There's one classroom that's actually still furnished with the real furniture. Then this is the original carpet. It's not the original, but the original color. So we re-established that, and then we made this piece of furniture for the library, trying to be able to make intimate spaces within the big space, but still having the possibility of opening up the space to the double height facade. That is an important part of the space, of course. So we made this Harry Potter piece of furniture you can move around, and the children can change somehow the space for them. And underneath. So here you see the original staircase, very beautiful. Lightweight concrete staircase going down to a small piece of basement one of the program requirements was to get toilets inside of the building, because in '56 all the toilets was on the courtyard, and you could actually ask your teacher to be able to leave, and you could walk very slowly and go to the toilet and spend half an hour doing that. But it's not possible anymore. They want to have toilets inside, so we made these underneath the buildings. So this is kind of the border between the old and the new. This is also the original color. And what we did was to somehow pay a homage to Arne Jacobsen by using his wallpaper or his sketch for wallpaper and resize it and use it as a flooring of the toilet. And here you see. So during the day, this is mainly Arne Jacobsen would never make this high, so the proportions are definitely not him. But we were not allowed to make them lower. So otherwise, it's mainly the existing detailing that we used here, and of course restoring everything to get back to the 50s. But hopefully that's not visible. And then if you move down, you kind of see the geometry changing to these courtyards that you can of course enter through the doors here, and you can use them as project spaces for the project that you're doing. And coming down here, you have this kind of very bright space, white concrete floor that's quite robust, even though it doesn't look like it. And you have this big laboratory space that they use sometimes with many children, sometimes only with a few. You can do group work. And another thing that we did that was important was to move down all the functions that needed new installations like ventilation, to not destroy the existing furniture of Arne Jacobsen. So by moving down physics and chemistry, biology, physical education space, and the food class, the kitchen class, whatever, we could kind of save the existing building from getting destroyed with docks and so forth. And here you have the entrance to the school. Two of the main staircases is also used as small auditoriums, teaching spaces. And here you have the relationship between the physics class, and here you would kind of get your assignment and discuss, and your teacher will tell you what to do here. Then you come out here and do your group work or your project work, as you can see here. And then, of course, the furniture kind of we tried to make them as heavy as possible, because otherwise, they'll be moved around and it will become a mess very quickly. But so they're kind of big pieces of furniture, and we made some supplement to the Arne Jacobsen color scheme, but not much. Otherwise, it's his color scheme. School kitchen, or not school kitchen, but a common kitchen where everybody can go down and cook. And if you have a class of geography or whatever, you could kind of do your project down here and do empanadas or whatever. And then the kind of daily life. Next project is also quite. It's quite an old project. I think it's 2007 or 6, but it's a project that I like very much, and also we sometimes refer to this kind of geometric way of working that we did here. It's a very simple project. It's an old water tower, still in use. You have the water up here, and then it's kind of a mixed-use program with housing, youth housing, or very small apartments, 35 apartments, 28 square meters big, and then you have a youth center in the apartment down here. And the competition was to of course, to make these apartments. And what we found was very important. It's in the middle of two highways and a railroad. It's always difficult to say. So it's all these kind of infrastructure around it. So it's kind of an island, but it's also a landmark in the area. So the important thing was to keep the scale of the landmark and to keep it kind of abstract, even though you move in with this very domestic detailing, you could say, with the small apartments. So that was the main concern, was to keep it abstract and to make the geometry as not as domesticized as you could expect when you have these small apartments. And then, of course, to heal up the round shape, which is a difficult shape to furnish. When you have these small pieces like this, it's almost impossible to furnish, and it's almost undecent to present that as a living space. So what we wanted to do was to add this geometry to be able to heal up the space and to be able to make it finishable. And then, of course, to make a decent living space, we added this small piece of furniture that could take care of all the functions, like the wardrobe and bathroom and kitchen, and storage space and a small desk. And then you could sleep on top of that, and then you have space actually to have a living area. So that's the main idea. And of course, to get not to get views towards your neighbor, but have enough daylight. And this is the plan. Two different apartment types. So this is the main idea of this kind of space where you don't have to invite your friends in on an unmade bed if you want to invite them for dinner. It's social housing, so it's subsidized. The economy is very tight, so we prioritize the economy, and we make these as a prefab production that you could crane up and put in. And of course, as you can see when you get closer, that it's kind of a cheap detailing because we wanted to keep this far distance abstraction, but this is very expensive, buying the big glasses and so forth. So we just used two small pieces and glued them together and so forth. And the view. And of course the small function furniture. This is another conversion project. It's kind of just a fun piece that we just finished. Copenhagen is a city that grew suddenly when the fortification fell. You could say, you were allowed to build an area between Copenhagen and the demarcation area, and that happened in the 1880s. But just before that, the outskirts of Copenhagen was kind of really very, very dense. Then on the outskirts, you had these almost like rural areas, you could say, where you could go and drink beer and so forth. So this building was built in '64 as this kind of place you could go in the Sunday afternoon and drink beer. And Vesterbro, which is one of the housing areas now, was not actually there yet. So what happened was that the area grew up very suddenly around it when the demarcation area fell around Copenhagen, and in 20 years the whole area was kind of very dense, and this space was kind of hidden away in the backyard. Then it had different life, you could say, as a dance place and dinner place and so forth, and then it was kind of forgotten. So when we found it together with the foundation, this is what you could see from the space, and it was kind of built up against, and we thought it could be interesting to bring back, not to bring back the building, but somehow to liberate it, you could say, and to bring back this idea of Vesterbro that was growing very suddenly, and you have these hidden buildings behind the street scene. So this is how it looks like. It's not a very high quality building, you could say, And what happened was that we had to take mainly the main construction away, and we had to support it a lot. So it's only a shell that's left. This is how it looked like. But then somehow you could bring back this small garden that you can see from the street, and you can see the back building from the street through the windows. So finding a function that could be somehow public into this building was also important, and in the end the client found the Danish Lawyers Association to rent this building, and they wanted to use it as a seminar space, but they needed more square meters that we could provide. So the whole kind of idea was to try to provide as much space as possible and all the functions in this machine, you could say, almost, or animal, and still be able to see and understand the original space around it. So you have a classroom up here. You have a connection from the front building to the back building. You have elevators and so forth, and then you have a big seminar room out here. We had to support the wall; it was falling out. So what you see is kind of a support of the existing walls. Otherwise, it was just left as it was found, almost. The connection to the back building here. And then being able to create different spaces in the big space, of course, by a big heavy curtain. So you can have these smaller spaces, and you could also make this more intimate. Yeah. Just some details where the old floor was up here. And then, of course, this is kind of a nerdy thing, but the acoustic is done by geometry as well as with the soft cloth behind it. So this is a geometric way of diffusing the acoustics that gives better acoustic than just eating the sound. And then you of course have the absorbent in the back here. And then we call it the heart starter. So the hallway that connects is kind of very bright because everything is grey and somehow very neutral. We wanted this to be an in-between space where you could kind of wake up when you're at a seminar. And of course, new staircases in the back space. Yes. This is also a building that was actually opened a year ago, but it's been a long time on its way. From 2007, we did the first sketches, and finally the client got the funding. And the idea here was to. It's a children's culture house, and it's not a space for children to. It's not kind of an institution. It's more like a space for children to go and work with people. So you have professional dancers and theatre people, artists, and so forth. And it's a different way than the more institutionalized way that you work with children in Denmark. Is much more about. Usually, you could put your children into this children's institution. They'll do stuff, and it'll be fun and so forth. But this is a little more serious. You really want to work with the children to do different kinds of art. And the site we were given was very small, like this, and we wanted to get as much space as possible to be able to host as many facilities and activities. So mainly. One part of the site was 2.5 story, and the other one was 6.5. So we just connected the two gables and pushed down the middle to be able to get the sun into the backyard of the building. And then The entrance space was placed in the middle, so you can overview everything when you enter here the first time. So when the children arrive, they can enter here, and you can see what's going on in the house. So you can see your friends in the cafe or the theater space down here, or the enclosed workshops up here in the mountain, you could say. And you have a gallery space where you can also overview what's exhibited here at a glance. And then there's a visual connection all the way down to the entrance here. And this is how it ended up. The skin is regarded to be somehow a space that's livable. So you have these very deep windows here. You can inhabit somehow, so the children can change the lining inside it, and you could make it yours. And you have the space between inside and outside, where you can be alone or be with your best friend. And this is, you can see, it's a very kind of dense site, and we don't have any outdoor area connected to the house. And this is somehow trying to relate it to the scale of the existing building. And here you see the lining here is done by some of the children, and if you're a small child, you can kind of stand up inside it and make it your space. So entering to the entrance area, it's called the beach. We work with the children, with a group of children from 7 to 18 to somehow make the program of the spaces. And we talk very much about sort of landscape-related themes like the beach, the open horizon where you can actually see what's going on, or the mountain, and so forth. So this is called the beach, and you have the multi-purpose workshop in here that you can open up. Sometimes they open it up and you work inside and outside the beach. And of course you have the connection all the way up to the different workshops up here. Another thing that the children wanted was to have these hideout spaces, and you could be together apart, or you could be together with your best friend, and still being part of the scene, you could say. So everywhere we have these sort of smaller spaces. This is the library. Sometimes there's also an exhibition area underneath a staircase. This is looking up to the cafe and to the theatre space downstairs. And this is the exhibition space. This is kind of dark, so you can take off and you can exhibit different fittings here, and you can actually see the whole exhibition almost in one piece. It's also a climbing wall. And when you get up the stairs, you have these different workshops. This is a dance workshop that can also change with kind of different furniture. You can change the spaces quite a lot. Small rhythm. This is a rhythm furniture. You can sit in it and use it as a drum and so forth. Yeah, another small space to get away from the masses. I think Arno Mandrup, who was here 2 weeks ago, and I think he probably showed this project, so I'm not going to show it very much. This is a project we did with BK Plus, also quite a long time ago. It's a sports hall, also cultural space, and it's set in an area of Copenhagen that was under focus, you could say, for a neighborhood lift, which is something that the Copenhagen municipality does. That they put some, they allocate an amount of money to different neighborhoods that needs somehow to get renovated in different ways, and then they locally decide what the money is going to be used for. And this is Håndværksgade neighborhood, and they decided to get a neighborhood center. We did the first one. It's a sports hall and this maritime youth center that Plot did. And also there's a park, a strip park there. The site was really difficult. You had a gas station, so it was polluted, and then you have these strange gables. You never see that in Copenhagen unless you have something that's been torn down. So somehow it's a section through the Copenhagen block, and these areas out here is actually used for the people living in the block as outdoor areas. And the possibility when we did the competition was to actually build all along this site, but that was kind of mean in a way to the backyards of the housing. And on the other hand, we thought that these gables were kind of worthwhile celebrating, you could say. So the program is mainly a sports hall with a 40 by 20 handball field, and of course there are different functions related to that. Otherwise, the program was quite free. So the idea was actually to connect or merge the kind of housing topology with the sports hall, taking care of the daylight into these private courtyards in the back here, and connecting everything. And we used the polycarbonate steel structure, somehow a covered outdoor space, and also more like a field of a meeting space, or a park, you could almost say, more than a kind of competitive sports hall. Using polycarbonate because it's durable, very inexpensive, and you can. It's transparent, of course, so you have daylight in the sports hall, which is not very usual. So this is how it looks like the next time. Very different, reflecting the kind of the day or night time, or of course the sky. A natural ventilation system, which is kind of automatic opening up, and of course the geometry is very good for that. By doing this, we actually got the most space that you could get out of the budget, and somehow we made this three-dimensional building site, you could say. So by having these tall spaces up here, you can put in different decks, and you can enlarge the building from within. So when the users get the money, the landscape can kind of move up into these high spaces, and you can get more enclosed space underneath, and sort of spectators place. Actually, it's a very popular space, and it's also used for all kinds of activities. Like there's a gospel choir there. There's exhibitions and so forth. So it's kind of active, and it's not mainly for sports. It's more for activity, and it's not organized. A lot of it is not kind of organized. Yeah. This is a small project. It's a small culture house, and it has to do, I think, with the Danish social democratic 70s suburbia. It's in Albertslund, and as you can see, it's kind of a very suburban area. It's right outside Copenhagen, and it's mainly built in the 70s. And at that time, a lot of experiments was going on in Denmark about collective living and so forth. So a lot of these areas here has some kind of, it's mainly social housing, but it also has a twist of collective living, and all of them has these neighborhood houses that where you could cook together, you could do stuff together. So the municipality, when you build something here, you have to make a neighborhood place. When you've been building so many housing units, and so this is a master plan by Julian Frost, and the main idea is to plant a forest, and then to cut out these eggs, and then you can build whatever inside the eggs. Actually, we did a collective housing building down here, but then there was a competition on the neighborhood center, And as you can see, the site is really tiny, and it's on the edge of this exit. So there will be some building here, and what we wanted to do was to make a small, very small footprint, but also to somehow challenge the idea of the neighborhood center. Instead of having these spaces where you have a kitchen, you have a multi-purpose space, and it's always rented out for birthdays on a Saturday night. So it's somehow privatized. We wanted to stack the possible activities that you could have in this small house and make it possible to separate the activities, so you don't always privatize the house, but also, of course, to use them together. So everything is connected in the back by an elevator and a staircase, and then you have these different activities. Here's an industrial kitchen. You can open up to the outside. There's a small auditorium and multi-purpose space, and basketball and Friday bar and so forth up here. And then we added a climbing wall and a skateboarding ramp to this side. And this is more about the energy consumption. It's very sustainable. It's using geothermal heating and lots of different appliances, you could say, to keep the energy consumption very, very low. As you can see here, this is the forest. Can you see it? It's very small. It's gonna be higher, and we hope that. Or not hope, we know that the trees, which is Rubinia, will never get higher than 20 meters, so this will always kind of be higher than the forest around it. And of course, this is kind of the main entrance to the auditorium, but of course you can enter down here and get the elevator up here. You can open up this to the outside as a bar as well. And the climbing wall, as you can see, and the multi-purpose space up here. The half of the cladding is perforated to make passive solar screening. And at night time, it's kind of visible. The auditorium is mainly just a small staircase where you can sit on the stairs, and you can have activities going on the floor. This is the architectural mistake. It's not supposed to have pillars, of course. It's supposed to have a load-bearing facade, but it was too expensive, so I shouldn't show that. And connection between the connection here is with a soundproof sliding wall, so you can connect it or disconnect it. And multi-purpose space. And the detailing, it's aluminum. I would like to say reused, but it's not. And of course the basketball field at the top, and you can see it's really low rise around you. You can see all the way to Copenhagen. Then there's a very small project here that we are building right now, and it's just a kind of fun project. It's a small viewing tower on the Aarhus Harbour. It was a competition we did just for a landmark on Aarhus Harbour to kind of start off the new master plan that are getting built there. And the program was just to have an elevator and a viewing platform, and only a footprint of 2 by 2 meters, which is on top of an old crane foundation, you could say. And so the idea was to make it an experience somehow, to walk, to get up there, not just to go up there and have a view and then go down, but to use the movement on the way to the viewing tower. So we worked with this as being a big staircase that you could also use as a platform for swimming and fishing and so forth, and you could use it as a viewing platform when you have regattas and competitions, sailing competitions and so forth. And then of course you get up there and you can have a view as well, and get protected from the rain. It rains quite a lot in Denmark. Yeah. And then the idea is, of course, to make it as a ship and to weld it in a shipyard, and then you just ship it there and you put it down on this really small foundation 2x2. So it's actually getting built now in Grenaa, not far away from Aarhus, and they will sail it hopefully in May and place it on the foundation here. It's kind of a small piece. The last project here is a project we just won competition of the, I think it's called the Wadden Sea in English, in Danish called Vadehavet. And it's placed here on the coast, on the west coast of Denmark. All the way along the coast we have this UNESCO protected area. It's very low when the tide is. There's a high tide, you could say, and then you have sometimes you only see almost just sand and land, and then the tide will come once a day and will kind of drown the whole thing. So it's very rich on food for the birds, and all birds that are traveling from the north to the south in the winter and coming back in the spring will actually feed in these areas here. And we have this phenomenon called black sun, where you can't almost see the sky because you have these big formations of birds that are traveling, and it's kind of a beautiful and strange area. You can walk to the islands sometimes, and you can also drown if you try, and you get caught by the sea. So it's kind of a interesting area. So this is an island, and this is the sea. And sometimes it looks like this, and sometimes you only see water like this. So you can actually drive here or walk here at certain times. And what's there is this quite ugly, you could say, exhibition center that's supposed to look like a farm, but doesn't really look like a farm. The proportions are strange and so forth. Becoming a UNESCO area, some foundations in Denmark gave money to make a new exhibition building, but still using the old building. And what we tried to do was to say, well, that there's this traditional way of building in the area. It's very, very salty and very sort of harsh with the wind, and actually the thatched buildings last a lot better than anything else because it's actually almost grown in the area. So this is kind of traditional buildings in the area like this. So the idea is to somehow cover up the existing buildings by a new building to make a larger farm structure. You have the existing buildings here and here, and to thatch the whole building in a sculptural way. So you get a more abstract notion of this farmhouse, traditional farmhouse, and then entering from the parking space here in a kind of covered area, and of course you have the existing building covered inside here. So this is how the area looks like. Very sort of beautiful. This is the kind of birds feeding and rising, and so everything is about lowland and very big horizon. And the idea is that this building is growing up the landscape. Situation plan, as you can see. We connected all the activities, indoor and outdoor activities, just by one bridge, wooden bridge, and then when you arrive in this, you have this very sort of ambitious exhibition using all kinds of technology, but then you end up coming out changing to waders, which is kind of these boots and trousers, rubber boots and trousers, and then you go out with a bus from this space here, and you go out into the Wadden Sea. This is it's not so interesting. It's mainly exhibition area. You can see the existing house here, and then the kind of outer rim of the new house. and the entrance where the thatch roof is also used on the wall and then underneath, so you have these kind of covered spaces, but in the same shape. Outdoor areas for the children to eat and play and so forth. And this kind of interior, of course, it's about also connecting the existing building and somehow make a natural flow through this. So this is the end of the exhibition that you passed through a glass wall, and the different exhibition spaces. Yeah, that's kind of more about detailing. Of course, only using wood and straw. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from the audience? Questions from the audience?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Feel free to ask any questions. Nothing is stupid. Nobody? Oh, just a small question. Everything is understood. And yeah, that's one.
We're talking a lot about using as much daylight as you can, and also forming the buildings with the utilization of daylight. And I was wondering if Denmark has some specific light guidelines that you follow.
Yes, we have guidelines of how much daylight you need to have in in an office space or in a housing space. So we have to document that you have enough daylight, right? At the same time, of course, we have the energy requirements. So it's kind of the balance. Right now it's very difficult, I think, even using 3 layers of glass and so forth. But I think the basic thing, and I think daylight is a very important part of the education or the discussion that we have in the education, because we don't have enough of it, right? And the winter time it's almost like a depression. You get up 9 o'clock and it's when you go to work it's dark, and you go home it's dark, and I think so there's a lot of concern about daylight when we do architecture. Yeah. Not just the amount, but also the quality, of course.
I was thinking more about newly erected buildings, that they close down the daylight from neighboring buildings. Is that you try to avoid that?
Yeah. Yes, and I guess there's also a balance because this whole idea of densification of cities right now, which is important, I guess, energy-wise, but it also has to do about making the adjacent buildings reflect daylight into the first building. Right? So the traditional material in Denmark would be brick, which is usually quite dark, and I think somehow you need to change that notion to get more reflection into the surrounding buildings. Right?
That's why you use a lot of metals for this.
Well, I would like to say that's why, but no. I think we have a concern on, of course, also trying to use only one material. So if you use too many materials, the abstraction kind of becomes difficult, and just using one is more easy to work with the sculptural parts, and there's not that many materials that can be on the roof and the facade at the same time. So I think that's probably why.
Maybe just one more little question.
Yeah.
Why did you make these wood frames so thick on this one project?
That was to well, the thickness the thickness this way is about insulation. You need to, otherwise you have a cold bridge. So you need to somehow insulate it, but the deepness of the frames is about making a space in between inside and outside, to use the window as a habitable space. Yeah.
Can we this one project, you mentioned that you were working together with a group of children. I think it was the Soundproof setting. And I really like this idea, and I just wanted to ask if it's like a common approach of your work, that you're like working together with the later on then users to establish like a concept.
I think it is a common thing to work with the users, but not in a very constructive way. I think not always. I mean, there's this kind of notion that you need to work with the users, but it's not all that much you might get out of this process. I think but this process was kind of unique because we had several workshops with the children together with an artist, and so we were actually able to work not just with words, but to work with cardboard, and they were building stuff, and we were discussing what kind of dreams is this about and so forth. So there was a lot of time and money, I guess, put into this process, and that's not a usual process.
You mentioned that with this building you want to give a more abstract notion of the farming house. What do you mean by this, or why is it important for you to give something abstract?
Well, I guess it's about not being. I think it's about not being. If you discuss tradition and if you get too close, it becomes kitsch. And then I think it's about typology and material, but not copying. So in that's why the abstraction is a way of working with that.
So it's the abstraction of form.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Why do you have a special interest in schools and kindergartens? Do you believe that architecture can change education?
Well, yeah. No, I don't. No, actually, I don't think architecture can change education, but I think it's, and I think you can make the best education in the worst kind of spaces. But I think it's important. You do shape the way people behave by making architecture, right? So if you want to have children to be active in learning, you can actually do quite a lot to make them to provide for that. But of course, architecture cannot change more than so much, right? But I think that it has an important role. Yeah. But I love to do other things than educational things. Also, I think it's part of you get into, you've done one, and then you do another one, and you're asked to do a third one. Right? So I think there's also a kind of I think in that we also do other things than that. But of course it's interesting, but it's not something we kind of only go for.
Kind of relates to the question before. Also, Enrique Sobrano said in the beginning that there's this attraction to Scandinavian architecture, and also our view of the social system, for example, is a bit like paradise in Scandinavia. And so I wonder maybe there's a connection between this politics and this architecture also. And at the same time, we can look at your work and get quite inspired from it. But I wonder to what degree you think that this architecture that you make can be exported to other countries?
That's a very good question. I think, of course, the social system, the school system, and especially the system of daycare, of providing daycare for everybody from their 1 year old and so forth, is of course an important part of the Scandinavian society, I think, because it also, I guess, it also has to do with somehow liberating the families and so forth. But I don't think that the architecture has to do. I mean, I see a lot of wonderful kindergartens done right now in Spain and in Italy, in the Reggio Emilia kind of pedagogic ways of doing it. I think there's a lot of other places in Europe and in the world where they have a very sophisticated view on children and education.
You mentioned a lot of conditions and like financial, structural, physical boundary conditions to your project. So I assume that you have a lot of planners you are cooperating with. How do you feel about the cooperation that is kind of necessary to complete the work, and how does it affect your design or your workflow?
Do you mean planners, or you mean?
No, like the structural planners, the technicians,
oh, yeah.
the physicians, and all these.
I think we work very much in Denmark as you do here. We take responsibility for the other consultants. So you make a contract and then you hire the other consultants. So you're somehow in control of the what's going on. So I think that's an important part of it. I think it's very important. It's a very important collaboration, and then you can get good and bad consultants. But I mean, it's I know here in Germany you have wonderful engineers and specialists, very high technical level. So I think if you can get knowledge out of it, it's great. And it's so much a part of how we work. So I don't even think that you could do it otherwise. So.
And in which stage of the project do you start consulting these people? Like quite early, or do they?
In this competition, we have energy engineers and a static construction engineer as well, working with us in the competition, and a landscape architect.
You have a lot of dominant bright colors in your work, and we were just in Copenhagen, and I noticed that it's always like, is that your signature, or how do you come up with this kind of?
I hope not. No, it's I think partly working with children. I think the color scheme, of course, is important, but I think also sometimes when the budget is not as good as you would like it to be, and you could work maybe with more costly materials, then the color is a way of making a unified surface, or you can't work with natural stone, or you can't work with you have to work with the linoleum or something like that. Then you could just as well use a color instead of making it gray. So I think it's mainly, and also, yeah, it's mainly because that it's the budget. Yeah.
I was wondering about the Jacobsen school you mentioned. One thing was you started with saying that it was important working with 3D modeling and like hands-on feeling. But the creative process there was other architect companies who have been involved in doing something else, and they were told no, go. So how did you find out to go down underground? I mean, what was the kicker of the creative process? How do you figure out how to deal with the constraints and the demands and the financial situation and resolve?
Yeah. I think the main trigger was that we really didn't want to spoil this piece of work. So
out of respect? Or?
Yes, you could say so. Yeah, out of respect, but also it's very, very difficult if you work with the modernist buildings, and especially the buildings of the 50s. Everything is about detail, and everything is about proportion and surface and so forth. So you cannot just bring something new into that without spoiling it, because it's so delicate. And I think the most difficult thing to do is to convert a modernist building especially from the 50s, because you can hardly do that without spoiling it. And I think so what our idea was to, in the beginning, was not to do anything, you know, and then we kind of we could only get so far by reprogramming and by, you know, changing. We made some sliding doors in between in the same detailing on the jacket too and so forth to make use of different, you know, to have a more flexible use. But you know, you could not get further than that. And then we thought, okay, where can we build without hurting? And it's underground, right? So I think, you know, that's probably the way it was thought of.
I had a question, maybe you already said it, but I didn't quite understand why and how, which tool are you using to measure the quantity of light coming in the room?
There's actually a physical light laboratory in the school in the academy in Copenhagen, where you have this endless horizon made with mirrors, and you have this model of the sun. You could actually put it, you know, to any time of the day, any time of the year, and because it's so precise, you could put your model into this, and you could put a meter into the model, and you can actually measure how many lux you'll get. Of course, you can only measure the amount and not the exact quality, but then you can take pictures of your model, and I think it's very analog, but it's also very precise and very useful. Of course, you need to have this laboratory to do it, because I think the new tools are not, you know, are definitely not as precise, because you cannot measure the quality. Right? So you can, in the model, you can always see what kind of quality do I get when you have a shadow, or if you had a gray day, or if you have a real sunny day, what happened inside it and so forth. No other questions? Well, that was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.